Evening, everybody, members of the Anglo-Turkish Society. It's great to see you and to welcome not one speaker today, but two, who are going to kindly be addressing us on what looks to be an extraordinary topic of a building in Galata, which has gone through successive different experiences during its life, which originally, as you see from the poster, came into its existence as the British Post Office. So we are going to learn about lots of different things tonight. So we just have to welcome Murat, Tülek, and Liana Kuyumcuyan to to take the floor. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So I can start sharing my screen. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us, and also thanks for inviting us to this presentation. Today we will talk about the establishment of the old British Post Office located in Galata, Istanbul, and the building's afterlives following the closure of the post office within the foundation of the Republic of Turkey in 1923. Drawing on archival documents, oral histories, personal accounts, and spatial analysis, we will take the building as a layered historical artifact rather than a fixed architectural object. While starting our research in 2021, I guess, we gave a big importance to approaching the city not only by its materiality, but also by the social, economic, administrative, and political relationships within that environment. So urban fabrics such as streets, buildings, or wall ruins that can be used to trace the built environment and its relationships reveal a society's past through its historical layers. So making a place's multicultural past accessible to everyone is as important for urban memory as it is for today's urban experience, we believe. And this is what exactly our aim and starting point for this research.
Yeah, I think I can start at the beginning. Our work began by establishing a simple chronology of the building before it was opened in 2020 as a social hub. Our main goal was to uncover the layered memory of the structure with its long history, as it served as a place intended to host a community. Today, Postane is a building that has a cafe, store, a co-working space, a library, an event hall, a podcast studio, and a terrace where there are edible plants growing to be served at the cafe. So our research evolved together with the space, and it became a project called Searching for a Cosmopolitan City in a Building. With the scope of this project, we began conducting systematic archival research and interview individuals significant to the building's history. In parallel, we organized presentation by various researchers on the history of Galata. This research was not just about the history of a building isolated from its surroundings and the history of the city, or did not only just focus on its architectural features. Throughout the process, we saw that the history of the building was quite parallel to the history of Istanbul and Galata. Probably we can say the same thing for many buildings in Istanbul. We can read the history of the city through a building. Important turning points and events in Istanbul's history also caused change in this specific building, which we will mention today. Our methodology in the process was not linear. While we researching the archival material, we were also meeting the people who had stories in our building in different ways. So gathering this information and designing the structure of the book, we created a site-specific sound exhibition called Postane Archaeology of a Building, which is still on display at Postane Building. This alternative media to express our research was really important for us since we could use the original voice records of our oral history research and we could tell the story of our building on its own location by guiding people through a created sound to make them imagine the old spatial design and memory of the building. To help with that, we also placed the building floor plans alongside their contemporary counterparts. Following this project, the book was published in September 2024. The book is still available at Postane, currently in Turkish, just in Turkish, with an English edition planned for the future. The research process has become an interesting challenge for us as we attempt to represent a layered history. The book is structured into five main chapters, each representing different eras of the building's history, as well as the different periods in Galata's development. Each chapter begins with an overview of the political and economical context of that era, sometimes focusing on Galata specifically, and sometimes on Istanbul as a whole. Then we explored both archival and personal histories. I can say that we used a blend of methods to craft the final text.
So our book traces the architectural, political, and social histories of Postane, from its construction as the British Post Office to its many subsequent roles, including a British boys' school, an apartment building with a carpenter's workshop at its entrance, a cultural hub for filmmakers, and today a center for civic engagement. By studying its evolution, we aim to reveal the hidden layers of Istanbul's urban and social fabric and show how built environments are shaped by political shifts, economic pressures, and the everyday lives of their inhabitants. So now we can start delving into the historical part of our building. So the British Post Office in Istanbul was constructed in 1859. Just before its construction, several significant events in the Ottoman Empire influenced both the built environment and urban life, particularly in Galata. The first was the Crimean War, and the second was the establishment of the Sixth Department, which was the first municipality that even continues today as Beyoğlu municipality. The Crimean War triggered a series of innovations in the Ottoman Empire, which led to the establishment of a British institutional settlement, as the British were the Ottoman Empire's allies in the war. So the establishment of the Sixth Department initiated urban infrastructure works in Beyoğlu, particularly in Galata. In its early years, one of the important agendas was the demolition of the Galata city walls. The construction of the building took place just before the demolition of these walls, as you can see in the first two maps that we are showing right now. Therefore, it can be said that Galata was a region still surrounded by the Istanbul city walls and consisted mostly of wooden buildings at the time. So our building was also constructed. The street where the building was erected was a dead-end street ending at the city wall. So during the Crimean War, which began in 1853, 6 years before the Postane building was built, the British presence in Istanbul increased significantly, leading to the need to establish military bases. Galata, much like Beyoğlu, was a highly multicultural area back then, and the British were one of the many communities that established their consulate and civic buildings here. So in particular, the Bereketzade neighborhood, where the British post office was later built, became most like a British neighborhood. In 1849, the land was purchased for the construction of these buildings, which included a hospital, consulate building, court, and a prison. Later, a doctor's house and the British post office were added to the plan, at the call of the British Post Minister George Campbell in 1858. So this building was designed and built by a British architect called Joseph Nadin, and it was completed in 1859. Today, some of these buildings remain in their original form. For example, the British prison, the consulate building, and the doctor's house and the post office have all been preserved according to their initial plans. But in 1904, the hospital was renovated and took on the form we see today, functioning as Beyoğlu State Eye Hospital. During this renovation, the court and part of a prison were demolished. Murat, we are not seeing. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I think it's important to mention the Joseph Nadin's name a little bit more because he's unknown architect who lived in Istanbul for a period of time. We know that he's originally British and he had an address in London in letters of working in Istanbul. Although not much information about Joseph Nadins is available, but various archives reveal that he was involved in design and architectural implementation of other buildings in Istanbul and made design proposal for several buildings. For example, the name of Nadin also appears in documents from 1856 and 7 in the archive of St. Pierre Church in Galata. The correspondence and reports in this file shows that Joseph Nadin worked as an architect and engineer to dismantle an existing wooden house in Üsküdar and rebuild it into the garden of the St. Pierre Monastery in Galata. But I think we didn't know and we didn't find anything about it except these documents. We also found that he worked on a proposal for a bridge that connects Eminönü and Galata, which was not approved, but it's really interesting. And also a construction it's in Yassada and a proposal for building the Crimean Church to be built in Galata.
The first two chapters of our book covered this British era of the buildings, spanning roughly 100 years between the 1830s until the 1930s. These chapters are based on archival documents we have obtained from our research in many archives. The building's first function was as a post office, and many individuals, including directors and workers, are noted in the archives. One of the most significant figures was Frederick Stewart Cope, who served as the director of the British Post Office from 1892 to 1899. In 1895, he decided to relocate the British Post Office from this building, from our building, to Karaköy to provide a better space. So according to the letters we found, the Postane building was considered deficient for postal services, leading to the move to Yeni Han in Karaköy. This new location was closer to sea level and the harbor, avoiding the steep slopes of Galata. However, the Galata post office was also provided housing for the postal workers, and several years after this relocation, the workers began moving to new residences. We found all the workers and employees of the post office by mostly looking at Annuaire Oriental. So also we could find their house addresses after the post office was relocated from our building.
So after this relocate the post office, this change also led to another significant transformation for the building. In 1905, the British High School for Boys was established here, and it served the same purpose until 1912, when it moved to its new building in Nişantaşı, which still today serves as a Nişantaşı Anatolian High School. The English High School for Boys was founded to provide commercial education and training for the children of foreigners in Istanbul, especially those who members of the British community. The main reason for the establishment of the school was provide English language education for British boys and children of all nationalities within the Ottoman Empire. The school was opened on October 1905. And in 1905, the British community in Istanbul initiated a subscription system to establish the school. The school's first board of directors, which would also serve in 1911, includes Consul General of the British Crown Alexander Telford Ward as a president, Dr. Ireland as a secretary, and Alfred Seeley as treasurer. Other members of the committee included Mark Swaby, C.E. Hampson, Arthur Baker, Walter Seeger, and A.G. Hayden. The Baker and Hayden families are also famous families. After the Crimean War, both families played an active role in the commercial life of Istanbul. George Baker formed a partnership with Hayden in 1860 and opened a store near the Galata Tower Gate in 1862. In 1890, he and his son Arthur founded the famous G&A Baker Company. By 1907, the number of members funding the school had risen to 26. In addition to the board of directors member Arthur Baker, the founder included James William Whittle and Frederick Edwin Whittle, members of the famous Whittle family. In 1912, the school moved to Nişantaşı. Frederick Edwin Whittle was to become both a board member and guarantor of the school funds. I think you all know the Whittle family, but after 1912, the building remained in British ownership, and we know it was mostly used as a rental property. The ground floor was rented to a carpenter, while the upper floors were rented out as residence. In addition, we know that in 1922, the building was used for a short time as an extension of the post office in Karaköy for parcel post. After foreign post offices closed in Turkey in 1923 with the foundation of the Republic, we have very limited information about how the building was used, but we think it's still using as a rental property. But we don't have any documents about it. However, by 1921, the building was sold from the British to a Jewish family.
From this change of ownership, we come to the third chapter of the book, which focuses on the building's apartment era. Here we used a mix of archival documents and interviews with people who had lived in the building. In that period, the building was bought by a Jewish family, as Murat mentioned, named Çukran in 1931, and used as an apartment building until 1982. We can say that the apartment was a sort of family apartment. In 1942, so after almost 10 years, the Çukran family transferred the building to their sons-in-law, Solomon Cohen and Mission Niego. In this photo, you see René and Marcel Cohen, the grandchildren of Çukran couple and the children of Solomon Cohen, who were born in this building. These names are one of our primary sources for this period. They recounted both how the building was used and their memories of it. So in these years, the building has two doors, two entrances. The door on the corner is used as a carpenter's workshop. Koça Papadopoulos, who was the carpenter renting this space, is one of the oldest residents of this building. Even though many people knew him, we got the most detailed information from his son, Yorgo Papadopoulos. We searched for him for a very long time, but just before our book was published, he came to the building and found us. And the second door led to the residential areas on the upper floors of the building. Each floor was converted into two apartments of different sizes. Two different families lived on each floor. And the attic was later converted into a small house as well. So this attic is also an area that has left its mark on the memory of everyone who lived in the building, because it was a place where they hung their laundry and ate a lot of meals together, and basically it was a space to socialize. So the Cohen family left the building in Galata in 1960s and moved to Nişantaşı. But after that, the tenant profile of the building also changed, and more Turkish tenants began to live in the building. We interviewed a few people from this period as well. So when we come to 1980s, we see that the building was no longer used as an apartment, but the carpenter workshop stayed a little longer. So we come to the fourth chapter of our book, which is the period of transition and transformation, paralleling the broader changes happening in Galata at the time. The building was sold by the Cohen family to a neighbor who owned a glass workshop in 1982. During this period, the building fell into considerable despair. Meanwhile, the ground floor was being used as a glass workshop by the owner. And during this process, an office building project was prepared for this building. And according to the documents we found in the archives of the architectural firm that prepared this project, the building was to be completely demolished and converted into an office building. However, the Conservation Board registered the building as a historical structure, and the project was cancelled. So subsequently, the Sarıboğa family owning the building sold it to cinematographer Kenan Ormanlar when they learned that they were not able to make the construction they planned.
And the guy at the right is Kenan Ormanlar. He's a well-known cinematographer in Turkey, and he owned a company called Cam Movie that was renting out cinematography equipment. The building was restored to become Cam Movie's new address. The restoration was carried out by Kenan Ormanlar's architect brother, Şaban Ormanlar, while the woodwork was done by the carpenter brother Cemil Ormanlar. And after the building's long-time restoration, Cam Movie moved into the building in the early 2000s. I think the restoration process is more than 8 years or something like that. And this company is a really important company for the scene of the cinema. After this company, not just a camera rental company, but also served as a school for filmmakers, as told by the workers of Cam Movie and in those years. Therefore, the building still has a special significance for the filmmakers. This chapter is particularly rich in personal stories containing many details and oral history texts about Cam Movie's importance to the movie sector in Turkey, in addition to restoration of the building. And they are the old workers of Cam Movie company. And the final chapter of the book is written by the director of Postane, Yaşar Adanalı, reflecting on what the building has become today as Postane and its significance to preserving a building as a living heritage site. When we look at this project, we can say that we have explored the history of Galata and Istanbul through the lens of one building and the people connected to it over time.
Um, so the personal stories we have encountered during our research helped us to better understand the political, economic, and spatial atmosphere of past years, more so than just examining specific events and dates. For example, personal letters we found from the 18,000s helped us to understand how non-Turkish communities, such as the British, were moving to Istanbul and how they were perceived by the locals. We learned who among the locals worked with them and how they were affected by certain political events. The personal stories we collected from our interviews provided similar insights. Through this book, we not only discussed historical events, but also, I mean, by historical events, we generally think of well-known events or dates, but we also found out lesser-known events by listening to these personal stories. And also, we could capture the context before and after these events occurred.
I think one of the most important parts of this project is that we had a chance to research a building that is open to the public today. This openness led us to individuals who played an important role in its history. Most of time, these people found us by just entering their old house or their old workspace or where their father worked for over 50 years, and they said, "I was here before." And thanks to this openness, even after we published our book, there are still new people contacting us with their stories about this building. Listening to all these personal stories is crucial when trying to comprehend a building's history. By weaving larger events through the eyes of individuals, we gained a deeper understanding of what caused these events and the economical and social climate that followed. We Often the effects of certain events on societies are overlooked, but thanks to these personal stories, we can understand Galata's changing social and physical structure over 200 years. By diving into the history of one building and examining its smallest details, we gained valuable insights into why Galata underwent special and social changes. We can now see the economical and political events that led to this transformation in Galata in many aspects.
So through this research, we also touch on topics such as cultural heritage, cosmopolitanism, touristification, urban transformation, social change, and spatial justice. Through this building and the people connected to it, we explored the diverse layers of Istanbul's history. However, rather than emphasizing divisions such as ethnic, religious, linguistic, and cultural differences, we sought to imagine a city where these distinctions do not segregate or categorize people. By incorporating diverse sources from various countries and languages into our research, we also discovered that nothing belongs exclusively to one society, and that a single event can have different social or political repercussions in another country. So we aim to uncover the possibilities of a more inclusive city by integrating these varied perspectives into our study. The tiny building is situated in one of the most historically layered areas of the city, which is Galata, and also whole Beyoğlu is like this. Yet it is also in a place that has increasingly become a non-place due to the newly opened commercial or trading spaces with a global identity. Of course, also touristification is a huge part of it, leading to gentrification of the whole neighborhood and also this Beyoğlu district. So to counter this trend, we believe it is crucial to connect with our environment, creating a network that holds the memory of the place, because we believe holding space is about preserving the memory of a place and fostering a sense of belonging in the face of urban placelessness. So this is why it is important to maintain the memories of places. By doing so, we can create a sense of belonging in a city that it is at risk of losing its connection to its past. So thank you for listening.
Well, thank you. I can see that it must have been very, very interesting research to do because it enables you to look at the history for 200 years. And whenever you get tired of one bit, you can move to the next bit. So that's obviously gives you great variety. I mean, you were talking about the impact of the Crimean War on the way that the British were able to institutionalize themselves in Turkey. I don't know whether you could expand a little bit on that.
If you want, I can start, Murat. So during the Crimean War, actually, there was a lot of British presence in Istanbul already. But
Hmm.
for communication, they were using other countries' postal services for communication. But after the war accelerated, they had a really hard time to contact with the soldiers in a quick way. So they needed a different infrastructure for themselves. And because of that, first they actually built a small post office in Üsküdar in their military bases. But after that, also in this time, the British started to buy that area in the Bereketzade neighborhood that we showed you with the consular building and prison, etc. So uh, also in that time, the George Campbell from England asked for also a new building for British Post Office, since it was a necessity for them. Um, but so we can say that in Üsküdar there was this military post office, but the one opened in Galata, which in our building, became a civic post office, which is corresponding to the afterwards of the Crimean War.
But I think between the our building and the post office in Üsküdar, there is also a small time for two another building in near Galata, and one is near to Galata Nevlevihanesi, and other one is near to also our building in Perşembe Pazarı Street. But then they decided to build this building.
Yes, because they were basically renting a house, so it was not enough for them. By making this building, they were also able to host the director and the workers of the post office in that era.
And did they need special permission to do that? I mean, were they able to buy the building?
It was coming from England, all the permissions and money also.
Hmm. So who did they buy the building from in that case?
We didn't
We
know
don't.
it, but we know that there is a like a wooden house before the building, but we didn't know who they buy from. But it's a person, I think, not an institution.
Hmm. So were foreigners allowed to buy property in Turkey at that time?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I always assumed it was quite difficult to buy buildings as a foreign country in Turkey, even
Mhm.
during the late Ottoman Empire, because, for example, the Russians, when they founded their Russian Institute in Istanbul, were clearly perceived as being uh, an unfriendly imperialistic power.
Mhm.
And so I think there was quite a lot of politics around the idea that a nation could buy a building.
Yeah.
But there was this period, as you say, just after the Crimean War, when there were very cordial relations between Britain and the Sublime Porte. And I'm just
Mhm.
wondering whether it was this period of friendship, which meant that they could
Yeah. Yeah.
move. Because, of course, after it, the British Church in Istanbul was also founded a gift from the Sultan.
Yeah. The crime in church, right?
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
which is not far away and which is still
Yeah.
going today. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So I think there would have been always politics surrounding these buildings,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there were.
I
Mm,
just found a detail from this part that
Mhm.
there was an architect working for the British community called William James Smith, and
Mhm.
he actually offered, like, found this area first, and
Mhm.
basically offered to the British government to buy all this area for them to build first the consular building, prison, and the Siemens Hospital altogether.
okay, so he bought it as an individual, which meant that it meant that it didn't have to be given to a foreign state. Okay,
No, no. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that
But
that's yeah.
but they moved to post office to another rental building, and it's really interesting for us because the building is really not so huge, but it's enough for a post office. But we think that the elevation is the more important for the post office in that time because they always moved to really near to sea level in that time. So it's really interesting. Well, we couldn't find anything, any quotes about it, but we have some thoughts.
Mm, indeed, indeed,
Mhm.
indeed. Well, any questions for our speakers from anybody? Um, I don't know whether we have an eminent architecture student here in our colleague Peter Andrews. I don't know whether you have any questions, Peter. None from your end. Any other thoughts? Well, just as people are thinking, then if we move along a bit, then it's interesting that it should have been bought by a Jewish family, presumably. Um, I mean, I don't know much about the expansion of the Jewish community in Istanbul, but when did it reach its height, do you think? What period were there was a in what period was there a significant Jewish population?
I think the 30s and 30s mostly, because we
Mm,
know that there is a lot of Jewish families living in this neighborhood, the Bereketstade, and
mhm.
we have some articles about when the um, when Israel founded, they start to move from this neighborhood uh, to that area. So I think it's mostly in 20s and 30s.
Mhm, mhm,
Actually, also Galata was really dominant with the Greek presence, but in 1922 there was this civic, how to say, change between Greece and Turkey.
mhm.
So this also caused a change in the society, especially in Galata. And we see that there is a lot of, like, Jewish people moving into Galata after this shift around 1930s, as Murat said. So yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it would have had a profound effect. Yes. Yes. And then, as we saw from your photograph in 1955, the building was more or less unused, or at least very, very much in need of repair.
I think it's from 80s.
Ah, was that from the 80s? I
Yeah,
misread it
80s.
then. Yes,
Yeah, it's
misread it.
80s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's when I knew the area. It's from the 80s, and certainly it looked very, very much in need of restoration. It was very
Mhm.
run down in the 1980s, and the students were living in these apartments, and people like that. And they were not lived in by in high society at all. Well, anyway, none that I knew of.
Mm. And uh, in that area, really a lot of small industries are going into these buildings and they are start working there. And also, this is also a start to change the buildings conditions, something
Mm,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
Like
And then,
actually,
please.
sorry.
Mm.
A lot of other buildings are also having this kind of like carpentry workshops in their entrances, just as our building. So this is also probably causing this change because also this kind of production moved from Galata towards more peripheries of Istanbul through the years.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely.
And this carpenter Koço Papadopoulos is a really challenge for us because we know his name at the beginning, uh, and we always try to find some information about him, and uh, we found some people who know him a little bit or something like that. But as we told, the people really found us. It was really interesting research process because they just came. Yeah, I think we have some three or four examples that the people come to Postane and yeah, I was there and trying to telling the stories and our friends who work there calling us, please come. Someone came from the history, so yeah,
Mm,
we went.
yes, yes. I see. I see. And then moving a bit closer to the present, you talked about the overdevelopment of the area, but does that have any relationship with the present use of the building? What's the association? Or you said it was used for civic purposes. What did you mean by that?
So it's basically, I mean, the Ormanlar family who had this camera renting institution. They were not working anymore, but still they kept the building for themselves because they didn't want it to sell because all of the buyers wanted to make it a hotel or a restaurant in terrace. So the family really wanted to protect the building because they knew its historical meaning. They also made a lot of research by going to England. So Yaşar Adanalı, he was or he's still an activist and working in spatial justice, and he was searching for such a space to continue his like work with his organization, and he had a funding from another country, and thanks to that they met, and he basically said that this place was going to be almost like a public space. So by the civic usage, we mean that there is a cafe at the entrance and there is a store. And then there is a co-working area and an event space and a library that you can reach free. And you can also reach the terrace freely. There is a garden, which is like there's all of this edible vegetables growing and coming to the cafe. So, I mean, its aim is to keep it public as much as it can be. So, yes.
And they are also a company, but they are mostly connected with the civil society in Turkey. So they are always connecting with them and making some events with the civil society, or not just civil society, but mostly. Right?
Very interesting. And what's it called?
Postan.
Called Postan.
Even today.
Yeah, even today.
It's just called
Yeah,
Postane.
actually, the name is also coming from this history and this research.
Oh, interesting. Well, does anybody have any questions for our speakers? Michael would like to say something. So go ahead, Michael. We need to unmute you though. Could you unmute Michael Craig if you can, or
Well, that's
perfect.
That's all I wanted to say. I mean,
What was that, Michael?
As the authors mentioned Galata, there was an important Maltese community and Italian community as well, and they mentioned St. Peter and St. Paul, and the church was there to serve the Maltese and Italian communities. Something to remember.
Yeah.
Actually, our architect has a communication with the Saint Pierre Church and Monastery. We didn't give so much of detail, but the architect of the Postani building, Joseph Nadin, was also working for the Saint Pierre Monastery's garden to build a building, which we couldn't find any details about it today. But in their archives, in the Saint Pierre Church archives, we found his name a lot and a lot of documentation of his letters, what kind of workers were working to build that building in those years, etc. So we reached a lot of documents also, thanks to researching Joseph Nadin.
But we know that he made 3 iron houses in the garden of the Saint Pierre Monastery, but there's nothing there. It's a little bit confusing, but yeah, that's the document.
Yes. I mean, we also don't know what does it mean, 3 iron houses, but it's always written like that. We just know that they brought a wooden house from Üsküdar to Galata to rebuild, basically. So he worked on that construction. Yeah, but nothing more.
We think he should do some architectural works in also England, but we couldn't find anything about it.
Yeah.
Because he had an address in London in the letters, but we couldn't find anything.
Of course, that's the fascinating thing about social research. It never needs to end. You can carry on as long as you like.
Yeah.
And going to the next one, the next one. Absolutely, yeah. But
He
any
became one of obsession for me.
Pardon?
He became an obsession for me.
Oh, I see. No, not at all. I think
you've
got the nice results in your book. Any more questions for our speaker?
I have a suggestion. The 3 iron houses might be connected with the Iron Hospital, which was built by Brunel for the Crimean War. Isambard Kingdom Brunel was one of the great mid-Victorian engineers, and amongst his activities during the Crimean War, he sent out one of his great ships, and on board the ship was a prefabricated iron hospital. So possibly this architect was in some way connected with him.
You said Brunel, right?
Brunel.
Brunel.
Brunel. And he had the unusual French name of Isambard. 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 Kingdom Brunel.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's extremely well known, and he was responsible for the redesign of great ocean liners from scratch, and also the Great Western Railway.
Hey, thank you so much. We should check it. Okay, great.
And will you extend your researches and do a kind of a volume on the social history of the whole of that area, which would include other houses and other forms of social transformation?
There is actually a really good research about the old British prison because its owner, Mete Göktuğ, is a amazing activist and really like he's really interested in Galata. He's quite old right now, but when he bought the old British prison, he made quite a deep research about it, and we are still in contact with him. But
Right.
besides that, we didn't have any other attempts towards this actually.
Oh, well, that in itself is very interesting. Yeah.
But also in the hospital, Beyoğlu Eye Hospital, the former British Seamen's Hospital, there is some doctors, their professors are also interested in the history of the building, but it's not a professional way. But they are really interesting and making some small research about it. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, what fun. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The German Institute, which is also quite close to where you are,
Teutonia.
in the former German embassy, they quite often have people interested in Baukunst, and with this strong tradition of being interested in the domestic architecture. There might be some people there that would be interested in setting up some kind of scientific cooperation. It's certainly worth bearing in mind. It's one of the very, very few archaeological traditions which actually includes building engineering as part of its remit. None of the other institutes of research in Istanbul do, just the Germans.
Yes, they have a special word for it, Bauwesen.
Bauwesen.
Yep.
Right. Right. Wesen meaning existence.
It's untranslatable.
Yeah, Bauwesen. Oh, anyway, thank you very much for that. Yes, yes. Well, there we are. Certainly worth exploring anyway, because after all, the people in the German Institute there will be very interested in creating intellectual cooperation initiatives with people such as yourselves. Well, any more comments from anybody? Don't hesitate to put your hands up. Well, in that case, we just have to thank our speakers for a most stimulating presentation, and good luck with your further researches. So thank you very much indeed.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Not at all. I wish you a very good evening.
Bye-bye.